Hi everyone, welcome back to Chess with Mr. Ray. And today we are going to talk about the most exciting skills in chess, which is how do we really attack, because that skill is what really wins the games. Defensive skills are also very important, but attacking is much more fun, and you can't really come back to Mr. A and say, well, Mr. A, I'm not a good chess player. I've been losing all my games, because the first question that I'm going to ask you, well, did you try to attack your opponent? So today we're going to cover the most critical, the most advanced technique of attacking and how people make mistakes when they're under attack. So let's start with the simplest one and the easiest one, and some of you already know this, a pin, which is listed here under number 1. Now, what is it really is a pin is? So let's see. If we are playing black, something like this, following our 10-step system, and all of a sudden here we open up our bishop, letting our second bishop breathe. If our opponent here is not careful and not focused, we can right away pin that knight, which should give us a lot of ideas. One of the ideas is that if he moves the knight, okay, but that's for beginners. If he's uncomfortable, he moves that knight somewhere, you just simply capture his queen, and that's right there a winning game. But if he's smart and he knows not to move that knight, what you can do, however, is the next idea, which is a pressure on the pin. So pressuring the pinned piece by another piece, attacking him more than once, is a very, very effective way to attack in chess. And in this particular example, if you captured that knight, obviously you would open up his king, after which probably we already have some checkmating ideas. So the rook is under attack, the king is open, rook moves away. Now we want to be careful. We don't want just to get overexcited and hyper and impulsive and just blunder our queen in a winning position just because Mr. A said go to the king with your queen when his king is open. So we just want to remove that defender, an important bishop that was protecting an important square, and then we can just checkmate him, guys. Sorry, no prize, because this is way too easy. But how did we get into this position? Well, with a simple pin like that we had, let's highlight it, and not just the pin, but we actually made a pressure on it. That's what happened, and that's a very, very powerful example. Okay, so again, pin with the bishop, and putting pressure on the pin is often very, very powerful, and your opponent will start panicking, right? So let's see if we have any other pins in this example here. Let's see if you can spot an idea here. So it's going to be white to play 5 seconds. Sorry, no prize. This is not hard. Where can we create an idea for the pin? And I hope you guys got this. Bishop d3. Now this is also known as a multi-purpose move, because it seems like we're just attacking the knight, but actually we've recognized an important alignment as a pattern in chess. When the queen and king are lined up on the same diagonal, the bishop cannot wait to pin those guys. So let's say the knight moves away, and that's when we pin his queen and king, and that's another powerful pin that just wins you a queen on the spot. So very, very powerful. Pin. Please remember that in your games. Pin. Okay, let's move on. Now we can talk about in general what are the other attacking moves we have. Let's move on to number 2, and that is open file. And to reinforce that, we are going to double up our rooks. Now actually that could also happen in one of these games, but this time white prevented the pin, and now we offered him a trade. Now if he was to accept this trade, that's exactly when you have that powerful open file. Now I know that it shows you to go to the king, but in this example I also want to talk about 2 other principles. Now this knight here in the center could help you to exchange one of his security guards for the king. So let's highlight that. And that could potentially count as a remove a defender, although removing a defender is something that we had before where we captured the bishop, which was protecting a queen from going to an important checking square from the previous example. Now, this is not exactly removing a defender, but this is a strategical exchange to get his king weaker. Now, another thing we could do is we could go with we could go to the king, of course, but let's say our opponent recognized the danger and brought more security guards. Here's an important moment. You have this open file. Why don't we double up our rooks? Why don't we double up our rooks, guys, and look how powerful that would be. Doubling up the rooks on the open file is definitely for attacking purposes. It's not just to make it look good, not to make the rooks happy. You have to understand that it's a great attacking tool. So these rooks now can't wait maybe to even capture that knight next move. I'll capture that knight to open up the king. And, well, white definitely could get in trouble. So double rooks on the open file, they're very, very powerful. Now I'm going to start attacking with that fork. But we're going to talk about fork a little bit later. So again, to create an open file, remember that you need to get your pawns out of the way of your rook, right? So pawns are blocking in the beginning position your rook. So if you can change your pawn structure or trade some pawns, that will give you an open file. And right there, an open file is a very good idea. But just like sometimes you have to put additional stuff, like if you make a pin, put pressure in it. If you have an open file, please double up your rooks. It's more powerful. If you have an open file, please double up your rooks. It's not hard, but it's very, very, very powerful. And we're going to move on here. Let's talk about maybe a removing defender. Removing defender is a very powerful attacking technique, which is also used in our 10-step system. So if some of you already know what that means. But I want to give a very interesting example that I have here. And in this example, which I really, really like, black moved with his bishop to attack the knight. Now, the idea of this move would be that white might not care about this, because white is just going to say, well, I don't really feel the danger, and if he captures me, I'll capture him back from the defensive skills. However, the idea of this bishop move is exactly removing a defender, but 5 seconds, why would this knight be considered to be a defender? And if he is a defender, which the bishop wants to capture him, why would black want to do that? So again, a defender is a piece that prevents something, that defends something, just like my knight right now is protecting this checkmate. So a defender is an important piece that has a responsibility to do something. So what is the white doing right now? Let's say white just simply does not care about it, and he wants to, let's say, push that pawn forward, right, with an idea to attack my defender. But now black bishop captures that knight, removing a defender, but with what idea? Why was that important? 5 seconds in this position, guys. It's not very hard. What was that knight doing? Ask, what is that knight doing? And I hope you guys got this. So maybe you can ask me for a prize if you actually got this one, because this one is very, very good one. We captured that knight because he was protecting, just like in a previous example, an important square. And why this square isn't important? You only get a prize if you know both. This square was for our queen to come closer to his king. And that's how I want to checkmate, by maximizing my attack later on. So white plays here. He thinks he's removing my defender, but I counterattack with this maximization. And by the time he blocks, he protects the checkmate, I'll checkmate him, because the queen came right in front of, right in his house. And that is why that knight was protecting. That king was telling the knight, listen, please make sure the queen does not come near me. You're an important defender of this square. And that is exactly why black targeted that knight, which is called removing a defender. So there are many types of defenders in chess, like checkmate defender, pin defender, fork defender. In this example, a defender of an important square, a high responsibility piece. Okay, guys? So now let's move on. Let's talk about, we did maximize our attack in this game as well, because we invaded the king, but then we added the knight to attack the king. But maximization of the attack is something that we already discussed in the previous classes when we talked about our 10-step system. Okay, and we have both queens near the king in this position, so that is definitely one way to attack in chess, right? So again, that was this kid, Mr. A. I need to improve my attacking skills. In 10 of his games, he never brought his queen to his opposing king. I'm like, how are we going to win in chess if in 10 of your games you never really brought your queen to the king? He was just capturing pawns, wasting time with that queen. But really, queen to the king is very, very important. Again, that's something we've learned from the 10 steps. Okay, let's move on, guys. Now, let's say we have another principle, a multi-purpose move. Now, let's talk about a multi-purpose move on the fork. So I'm going to highlight these two guys right here. And they're very, very powerful. Now, 5 seconds. Can you spot a very powerful move for white in this position, which would be a multi-purpose attack? And maybe you guys didn't get this, but here's the correct answer. If you got this, tap yourself on the shoulder, ask Mr. A. Mr. A, I actually got this. Maybe I can get a prize. And the correct answer is knight to the center of the board. But this is more than just centralizing your knight. First of all, we are attacking the bishop, but that's what our opponent thinks. So he'll probably move the bishop out of danger, and that's when we can get a powerful royal family fork. So please remember, the fork is the best piece at doing the fork is the knight. So that's very, very powerful. Always ask your knight, hey, can you do a fork for me in this game? Always ask your bishop, can you do a pin? What do you ask your queen? Can you go to the king? So this is a very, very powerful multi-purpose move. And multi-purpose is basically with more than one attacking purpose. So it's not very easy for black here to continue the game. He has to be extremely careful. Again, forks can be very, very powerful, especially the ones that attack valuable pieces. And fork is in itself is a very powerful move because you attack more than one piece at the same time. Very powerful attacking tool. That is done by the knight. Okay, now let's continue. A lot of people, when I ask them, what is your favorite way of attacking in chess, other than the checkmate, they tell me, Mr. A, the most powerful attacking weapon that I've used to help me win so many games more than other games is the battery. Because the battery is when you really want to checkmate your opponent king with the queen and bishop. So 5 seconds here. I hope you guys got this. Queen e4. Now this is also a multi-purpose. We are attacking the knight, but notice it's always queen and bishop on the same diagonal, queen being in front of the bishop. And that's how you can win a lot of games. Maybe you should focus on that a little bit more. Batteries are powerful in chess. So just ask yourself how you can line up your queen and bishop in the middle game so that they can target the king. Okay? Very powerful. Battery is definitely one of the most powerful ways to attack in chess. Let's finish off with this capture, threat and check technique for rookies, I call it, for lazy people who do not know any advanced techniques like a pin or pressure on the pin, open file, battery, fork, going to the king, exchanging opponent, defending pieces, right? And if you really don't know anything of that, or the position does not let you do any of that, you can always ask yourself for these 3 helping attacking moves. It's a capture, which is always very good. A threat is when you attack a valuable piece, as you can see in this position. And a check, when you attack the king. So here's the point. When you do those 3 moves, one after another, one after another, one after another, consecutively, then your opponent will feel that pressure of an attack and he'll eventually make a mistake. If you do those moves once in a while, that's one thing. But as you can see, if I can just switch on my what's called a crazy attacking mode, and I tell myself for the next 3-4 moves, I have to attack him every move, and then you start capture and threat and check. The order is not even that matters, but what matters is the attitude. We are switching on an attacking mode in our brain, and then we will definitely, it will create a lot of pressure for our opponent. He will make a mistake, and definitely if you're attacking every move one after another, your opponent is going to ask, well, what's going on? Why is this player attacking me so much, right? And that's where he's going to panic and make a mistake. But it's really a technique for lower level players, because there's other things that are much more powerful, like a multi-purpose move, or queen to the king, or a battery, or doubling up your rooks on the open file, or even a pin, as long as you can put pressure on it. Okay, guys? So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to keep it simple. But at the same time, remind yourself to make an attacking move. If you follow our 10-step system, usually we would play something like this in preparation of both letting bishops breathe. But look how much stronger that pin could be. And look how much stronger it could be if your opponent is in La La Land and he doesn't pay attention. And we're just already starting to take advantage of that powerful pin with the pressure on the pin next move. Good luck defending this game. This is already, we are just started this game, but white is already attacking. Okay, well, that's because black did allow this pin on this third move. So why not, right? Although I saw somebody doing that. Now, that's not from our class, but somebody actually has done that, and they told me, Mr. A, if he accidentally makes, touches his pawn move, I'm going to claim a touch move rule and win his queen. I said, well, that's impressive, but that would be just too fast to win a game like that. But he said, yeah, but at the end of the day, it's a pin. And it is a pin that black has to be careful. And then the person told me, I'm just going to let my other bishop breathe, right? So once again, all of this attacking move. Now, the most advanced technique that I really would like to finish with is called an X-ray attack. But what do you think that would be? Well, an X-ray attack is when you're X-raying another piece with your piece. So, for example, here, letting the second bishop breathe, we have this central trait, and the moment this bishop steps here, notice how I did that. So, I captured the pawn to let the bishop breathe. I also made him move twice with the same piece in the opening, which is usually not recommended. But now, do you see what's going on? The bishop is looking at the king. There's no direct danger, but it's an X-ray attack, which could result in a lot of problems. Now, let's say black continue the game like this, connected knights, opening up a square for the queen is what I thought. But then my student told me, Mr. A, I'm actually putting my rook in front of his queen. And I said, well, that's interesting, but how are you going to win his queen? He said, Mr. A, don't worry. I'm just going to make sure that all the pieces in between the queen and rook move away, and that is how I'm going to try to win the game. And I said, well, that's impressive. That looks interesting. And yes, he did ask me for a prize. So that's an impressive tool. If you can put your rook in front of your opponent queen, or if you can put your bishop in front of your opponent king, and kind of like keep an eye on it, say, well, I'm not threatening you, but I'm just looking. I'm just looking in that direction. Your opponent will not feel comfortable if he has a good sense of danger. If he doesn't have a sense of danger, well, then it's too bad for him. But actually, I would suggest that white have to immediately get away out of that X-ray. And it's not very easy to get out of this X-ray, because the bishop, no matter what, is going to be looking at the king. Okay, and you never know. What if later on that resulted in a battery? We're waiting for the knight to move, right? So that's what we would call an X-ray attack. The truth is, there's many more attacking ways in chess, but just about these guys are more than enough to play at a very, very high level, guys. It's a question of understanding and reminding yourself. So good luck, everybody, on the quiz, and let me know if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, I'll see you soon. This is Chess with Mr. Ray. Remember, attacking in chess is very important.